prominent or academics in international universities all over the world. And they helped us to form a very strong linkages so that we have students from America coming to Laikipia University, spending some time there, that kind of exchange, professors from America coming to Kenya, Sweden, and so on. And that way we were able to see a growing university. That today, Laikipia's visibility is one of the the highest in Kenya, despite the fact that it's one of the universities that has not been linked with a particular county or ethnic whatever. If you think about Kenyan universities, you know, most of them are affiliated with an ethnic group, and Laikipia is neutral. So as small as it is, we have been able to set up a Center for Human Rights sponsored by the UN, and the center was specifically opened by the ambassador to this country. So you can actually see the main thing that the diaspora, the role that diaspora can play in promoting quality education and relevant education in Kenya is through forging partnerships which can last. And I think that should be the beginning, the point of doing things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chacha. This is amazing. I love that human rights. I know Wachmiwa, they are here. The remittances of money is good, and we are giving a lot of money. We are remitting money. But until we are able to capture the remittances of brains, that whatever research we are doing here, whatever research is being done in Laikipia, we collaborate, we work together, and then we met our students through our findings. It's very good. But let me move on to a totally different field now. We talk about financial education. Because bottom line, education is not just the classroom. We have to empower people. Some of the biggest problems are people not even knowing what to do with the money they earn. Many people earn a lot of money, but they don't know what to do with. They end up in the bar, they end up everywhere else. Catherine, please give us some advice.
Thank you, Professor and the fellow panelists. And see, for me, education is a thing that brought the little girl, the young girl, 19-year-old from Nyeri, to be in a space where in 6 years I could go work for a company like Accenture and develop myself to, when I left my job a couple years ago, I was a tax director. But the thing that took me there was what was beyond the classroom. In the class, I learned accounting skills. But as you know, there are accountants who are making $50,000 after having an accounting degree, and there are accountants who are making $350,000 with the same accounting degree. What makes the difference? It is, to me, is that educational piece beyond the classroom. How do you take that education and make it a skill that you can take to market? How do you go to market? We're living in a global society, and to me I think the one thing that is significant that we all have to do when we come to a place like the US is that we have to add that component of understanding how to shape our education into a marketable skill. So it's believing in yourself. So it's that personal development. I remember the first book I read in college was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I started to put those in place, to learn to manage my time, to begin with the end in mind, to have a vision for your life. And those things are what enabled me to shape my career. So I was not a little staff accountant in some corner, but was able to work for some of the wealthiest people in this country in private equity. So what can we take to Kenya? Not only can we export brains back to Kenya, but we can remit that additional education, that thing that has made you understand how to live in a place, how to tweak your own accent, because you need to communicate. Right? How to present yourself, how to speak. An authority person in psychology, his name is Jordan Peterson, and he's quite famous right now. He said the ability to speak, to write, and to think. That's what you take to the marketplace. You don't take your degree, your paper, you take your ability to communicate, your ability to write, your ability to speak, whether it is to speak to a customer. We have many companies here who are selling. You need salespeople. Can they communicate to the product, to the client? Can they motivate themselves so that they can be the top salesperson? Though that is a skill set I think that we can export back to Kenya, because we have a ready workforce, an educated workforce. But is that workforce ready for outsourcing? Can I go set up shop and that workforce is ready to be able to, can I get online, get a resume and hire a person in Kenya? I can do that with the Philippines. I can do that in India. I can get on and be able to pick a person. So there's a little gap there, and I think that is what we are looking, that I think is what we can export, and I'm very interested in that space, to elevate our thought process, to elevate in certain areas of personal development so that we can help our youth thrive.
Thank you so much. Catherine, that's so powerful. And Catherine gives speeches and does things. I hope you brought your business cards, because she does this financial management. Please note. Let's move on, because of the time factor, to a different area. We want our students to come to America, our children at home. But sometimes we don't realize the challenges and things they go through. In a few minutes, Paul, who is a very highly achieving student in Grand Valley University, data analysis, he's high achieving. He's one of the students we brought. Paul, how is life, my friend?
Thank you, Professor Dianui, and all my panelists. I'll try to give my experience in a short time, though it's big. I'll say some few statistics you have to realize, like here in the US, every year they have around 1,075,000 international students from other parts of the world, but only out of those 1,075,000, that's according to the report for 2020-2021, only 43,000 are from Africa. You can imagine, from 1,075,000, only 43,000 are from Africa. In Kenya, which is the hub for international students for the East Africa, only 3,000. So from just one school of mentorship from my namesake, Jojo Ashioni, you can be able to see the numbers here. And that's one of the things I'll say, like when we are talking about our investments, and what I have seen from other students from other parts of the world is when they are coming here, they know exactly what they are doing. And I'll borrow something from the Indians. When they come here, and from Asians, they come here to get skills, not to be employed, but to be consultants. But when I come here from Kenya, I'm doing data science. But I cannot give you the real experience of data science in Kenya and what are the gaps. I remember I was privileged to be one of the forums when I was coming, and I met the CEO for KCB, Joshua Igara, and he was telling me the challenges they have by outsourcing outside. So if students, when they are coming here, they'll know what is ailing their country, whether it's agriculture, whatever sector they are in, when they are coming here, they'll pay more attention when they get to school here. That's one. Two is financing. I've seen people who are not keen on other aspects. One, coming here as an international student is very expensive. An average graduate students pays between $12,000 to $20,000 per annum, whereas local students pays a quarter of that. And who finances that? Like, for example, here, I'm here on a student loan. I'm financed by Empower Financing. It's an Indian company, but they are here. They are the ones who finance international students without any collateral or any security. When the diaspora is complaining on how they are not sure of the safety of the investment back country, the other people who are interested, they are bringing money in Kenya, like, have this money and come here. And what are the modalities? And there is no even I don't think there is even any bank. When you go, you say you want to go to study abroad, this course is promising, I have this skill, they will not trust you. So that's another thing. Then when you come here, of course, there's cultural difference that of guard. When I was in Kenya, I never used to miss home. I would go home maybe 2 or 3 times in a year. But when I came here, I almost went into depression, getting to know people here live by themselves, like they keep to themselves. Now we are used to interact, and I was so getting now that and balancing with the classwork is a hectic for international students. Why? You are not many. You might end up getting you're only the person doing that course, and then the next thing is the exposure of technology. Like in Kenya, we are more to traditional ways of teaching. So when I came here, for example, I was a tutor to some extent in Kisii University. But getting here, within 1 week, given the assignments for 1 week, my laptop was almost crashing. I had to go and buy another one. And like in Kenya, there is a way we struggle with the level of technology, but here it's so way beyond on the blackboard. So I might say, like, the experience is amazing, and I'll tell you, if you have anything, the registers you're here, people have been taking people to other countries, but here it's an amazing experience. You get a lot of top-notch skills. The professors are always ready for you, and I cannot regret ever being here as an international student because it's skill-based. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our students are so eloquent. I love it. I love it. And the other thing I wanted to say is, yes, there are challenges. And to all communities, because there are many people watching online, please take care of your children. Those things Paul talked about, the challenges of the weather and everything else, the accents, the discrimination and everything else are there. But for our students to hang on there, we need the community. It's very important. But another thing that also happened to help our students is that you're not just focusing on your studies. You must give. We teach them how to give. And I love this young man, because this young man, although he's going through the same challenges, he's also doing a lot with a program called The Father to the Fatherless. Matthias, please, tell us about your program.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I am a proud student from Colorado Mesa University. We are in the state of Colorado. It has been just a blessing being there. I'm here to advocate for the importance of the higher education. You see, I don't come from the background of which most of you guys have come from. I come from a very humble background. I am a proud Ugandan and a proud American. I was a street child when I was a little boy in Africa, Uganda, and I didn't go through the same ways of education like everybody went through. Because of my time on the streets of Kampala, Uganda, I couldn't focus a lot, but God made a way for me to come to this great country, and when I came here, I did all sorts of work that you could find to take care of myself and my family. But one day something clicked in my mind. The need and the desire to go back to school came into my heart, and I didn't know how that was going to happen. So I went and took my GED. I failed it 3 times, but finally I passed it. The beauty of it, when I went to my university, they gave me tests, I passed them, studied law, and I began working hard towards my education. And as I speak right now, I am a junior at my campus where I go to school. I am so privileged to have my professor with me here today, Dr. Jacobo, and his beautiful wife. What Colorado Mesa University really does, or higher education does, it's more than really education. Universities have connections. They know where the resources are. Now for me, from my campus, they have been mentoring me, they have been developing me into a man who really is changing the world. This is a little bit about me. A few years ago, I went back to Africa, and I said, I am not going to forget where I come from. I know in Africa, Uganda, we have 2.7 million orphans that are living there, equivalent to the population of Chicago. That's a lot of children. And I appreciate you, all of you businessmen and women who are here, but a few of you guys have talked about the importance of supporting the vulnerable people within amongst us. There is a community of people there who don't have the resources we have, who don't have the opportunities we have. And those are the people that I represent. And I'm so thankful that I have people from my country, Uganda. The country of Uganda has given me the opportunity to be able to do what I do. I've gone back to Uganda. I have 83 acres of land, and that land is not for developing. That land is there to make sure that I build homes for kids who doesn't have a father or a mother. On the 83 acres of land, I have a clinic where I treat people from over 5 villages. I dig wells in my country of Uganda. I have recently built a vocational school where I have a lot of young girls who went through a lot of terrible time during COVID. Now they have an opportunity to come to a vocational school or a place where they can learn a trade and then be given 3 options to either work for me or I help them go start a business in their communities. You see, we all have a mandate to do. We cannot sit down and wait for the governments to do everything for us. And more particularly for us people here in the diaspora, we have a huge opportunity. Our dollars that comes from here goes along far to where we come from. So I want to challenge you. When you go back, when you go and eat some good food, take a moment and think that there is somebody who can't even afford to have that. You've talked about businesses, the people who can really do a good job for you. Those are actually some of those kids that you pass on the street. If you train them well, they can be dependable. I was one of those kids, and people passed me until somebody really looked into me and invested in me and see where I am. And a lot of children I have taken through university, and their lives are becoming better. So we can all do what we can do to make our world a better place. Now, if you have a desire to go back to school, my university, Colorado Mesa University, there is opportunities for everybody. If you are an adult, if you are just anybody who wants to come to school, go to our website. Go Google Colorado Mesa University. You will be able to learn more about what our university does. For those in nursing programs, we have a hospital nearby us. As students are being taught to be nurses, they take them to the hospital and they show them the real life, how things happens. Today I am here as a man who is who's striving to earn my business degree. I came with my finance professor. He brought me here to see and to experience how business people get the job done. That's what I'm talking about. That's mentorship. And I am so proud to be part of my university, Colorado Mesa University. Thank you for the opportunity.
I can listen to this young man forever. Oh my God, this is Jake, good job. I cannot forget you. Now, these people here, everybody in my panel can go on and on. There's a lot of programs you're doing. So only 1 minute each. Something very specific you're doing, starting with you, George. Not up to pen this time. Something you're doing or some impact you have created so that we can learn from one another and then we can move on. Let's share our experience. It's not bragging, it's what we are doing, like what this young man is talking about.
Wow, thank you, Professor. Let me face the online people. Yes, for me as George Washiri, other than mentorship, mentoring the career people, business people, university students, we have a very vibrant foundation that we are sponsoring about 543 students across 47 counties of Kenya. And we have been doing this for the last 10 years, and I'm happy to say that some of the people that sponsored, some of them are doctors, and they are doing well. other than doing scholarship for students, we have a huge program for the girls in arid and semi-arid areas, and we are sponsoring quite a number of schools to supply the sanitary pads, and we have a big program for people with cerebral palsy. Last year we did over 1,000 wheelchairs, and the other day I was in Kansas, and one of our customers donated about 200 wheelchairs that are being shipped to Kenya, and the demand is very high. Currently we have a demand of about 2,000 people who require wheelchairs, and that is something that we are doing. We have also a big program for climate change. We are known to plant thousands of trees. We are educating our customers on water recycling. We are advocate of green building because climate change is real, and I'm happy to say that last year we won an award for one of the green companies, and I'm happy to say that yes, we can do it. We have to do it, and you don't have to do it. Somebody else can do it better than us. So we do nobody's favor when we do good to the communities, and that's why we are here. And you can follow me on my pages. I'm very active on social media, George Washiri page or George Washiri YouTube. And that's why I do my mentorship and advocacy. And you can also follow me on Twitter, George Atoptiven. I'm humbled to be here. Thank you, Professor. And of course, I must say that Professor has been one of the resources in my school of mentorship. He actually talked to hundreds of business people that I mentor, and they were very, very inspired. Professor, I must say thank you on their behalf. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, go on.
Oh, okay. For me, I think in my talk, I specifically, actually, I answered that question. But to be brief, what I do is promoting visibility between African universities and global universities, which is very, very important to our country, Kenya. I'm here because of one of my mentor and somebody who made me to have a global outlook, and he's just, Dr. Choti is here. He opened up my ways and showed me how I can be able to do it, and the story is long. But what I do at Laikipia University after my term expired of being a director of external linkages, I opened up a center for to support, it's called child care, baby care center. Because university students have serious problems. Very poor students have children in the university. So what I did is to establish outside the university a small place where I can take their babies, keep them, they go to class, they come back and take their babies and go back to their hostels. And it's now 3 years old. I've had support from Italy and Sweden. And I'm still looking forward to expand it, because that is a really serious problem. I do not encourage pregnancy and have students becoming mothers at the university, because it's very costly. But we help those ones who will have so that we can minimize the problems that motherhood can cause, or it can impede towards their education. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to give a big one to Dr. Shoti again. This is what George was talking about, mentoring. Shoti was even meant to be here, but he said, let my student, my mentee talk. And I'm so proud of you, my brother, also. Thank you. The project you're doing in 1 minute or two, my brother, because you're doing a great one. Dr. Gwen, connecting.
Thank you. I mean, I would like to talk about the project, but I just thought I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm here, because that education process brought me here. Because I think when you look at me, you look at the finished product. And when you look at finished products, we don't realize what has happened in that process to get there. And the panelists, people who have spoken here, have really shared powerful stories, and you also have a lot of stories in the audience, I know that. So my story is pretty interesting, and what I wanted to share, and then it can connect with the project, is that I have been in the United States now for over 25 years. And my journey started in very challenging way, just like any other person. But through education, it is what has brought me here. And I wanted to emphasize one element of family, because it's really important. I'm here with my wife, Judith, and we have 4 children. And one of my children
My firstborn, who is now 22, she's autistic, nonverbal, but through love, we have transformed that girl to an amazing person, very functional. Actually, she's now moved to her own apartment, and we are living next to her, right? And surrounded by a community of success and all that. And then we have 3 boys who are, of course, Americans. They were born here, and they don't speak like me at all, but they are absolutely Kenyan Americans. But looking at the collaboration and love between me and my wife raising this, and the idea of education that is well balanced, has enabled us to do some of the projects we're doing. I'm a high school teacher in New Jersey, and also now I'm a founder of the Global Connections Kenya travel company. So what I've been doing for the last 15 or so years, I teach in a very rich high school. I think probably among the top 97, when you talk about top 99% of the wealth, that's where the school is, in Princeton. And my students, when I was teaching them and talking about malaria and the struggles we have in Kenya, challenged me to take them to Kenya. And I took them to my village, in Kisii, Nyongo village. What happened after that trip became a transformation about how we connect America and Kenya. And right now, as I speak, we have transformed that community into a strong link between Kenya and ourselves. And from that now, what's happening, we have now started what we're calling the Kenya Cultural Diplomacy Initiative, which has a focus of taking the kids who are born here, like my sons and my daughter, to connect in perpetuity with Kenya, so they can become investors in the future, so they can also connect with Kenya in a way that's different. And this is an element that I think those of you who have kids here in America, we need to really take this seriously. By connecting these individuals, you are going to then bring indirectly all the Americans who want to visit Kenya, because they have a reason to go there. Right. And when we go there, we transfer a lot of money to the country, but also we tie them to the future, and that's important. So I just wanted to mention this because we have legislators here, Honorable Sonkoli has been speaking to you before. We need to create a clear structure on how this is done. And finally, I was also in the classrooms in Kenya where I went to, and I found that the classrooms where our kids are going in Kenya, and my students were very much hold. They wondered how I managed to come to America from that kind of environment. The classrooms our kids are learning in Kenya, they have very, very limited resources. So we need to change the policy. The government should take, like they do in the United States, invest in school classroom development. Take loans, build classrooms. Because once you do that, you are investing for a long time. We can be paying for those loans in the future. But think, for example, if every constituency, every county has got high standard classrooms that were built, well resourced, that should be a high priority area. Because that's why kids in America are doing very well, because they've got resources. So I'm challenging the Kenyan government as a priority, not to make it a community development project. Take funds from the budget and build classrooms, and then people can pay that money long term. The diaspora can help in some of those payments. We are willing to make payments to cover those interest rates, because then the interest can be better. So I'm very passionate about this issue for sure, but I think we have to do something about it.
And they're still here. I hope you can have a chance during lunchtime. You can discuss a little bit more about what you do. Let me also pitch in what I'm doing, because I also have things I do. Mazakwaini village. Everybody knows here I come. Jeremiah, everybody knows I come from Mazakwaini village. Because I brag about Mazakwaini village. Because that is the village. That is the only place I can call home. All these other Guinea, Nikama watu wa Nyarugunga. That's the only place that brought me up to what I am. Yeah. And that is the place I invest in more. I even talk to my wife and she disagrees with me sometimes, because I feel like when I help kids in Mazakwaini village, I'm tithing too. That's okay. So I have built a computer lab for 11 computers there. Those kids in the primary school, they learn. We have a teacher there for them. Then in addition, particularly girls, the girls teach everybody in the community, and I like them to teach the police. We have partnered with the OCS, with the police. As the girls teach the police, they demystify the police. So the girls talk about anybody molesting them, the policemen catch them. So you stop that rubbish going on. Everybody benefits. The community can go there, get printing. But it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that we are doing. I'm telling you. So these are things. But let's also, Catherine, we are doing something together, and Majohi is here, and I know other people are here. We are talking about Nyeri Academy, the Nyeri model as it's called. Catherine, could you also talk about that?
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever paid tuition, paid for education, paid for school, for secondary school, for someone, for a student, for somebody who was in need, and after they were done with high school, they never did, they went back to the same village, the same state, and nothing changed about them? Okay. That's what we are trying to eradicate. When Professor Nyongo was appointed diaspora ambassador by the county of Nyeri, he was commissioned to, he was asked, what do you want to do with this position? And the intent was to look and see how the diaspora can partner with the county of Nyeri to be of service, to be advice, and how can we support Nyeri County goals. So Professor went out and put together a committee to work with him, and that's how he found me in Dallas, Texas, doing my life, being a mom and being an accountant and not bothered with too much. And he insisted on me coming on board. So he picked up a few of us, and we came on board, and one of our first tasks was to help with education. And so we were at peace with that, and when the committee started was right about the time when there was a new intake of Form 1 students, and the committee picked 20 students and was able to raise over 500,000 Kenya shillings within a few weeks and got 20 kids into Form 1. But the thing that we realized very quickly is that what we did not want to do was to repeat that. Take kids from the village, take them through smart kids. These are smart kids. These are kids in all the good provincial schools in Nyeri County, and take these kids to school for them to finish Form 4 and go back to the village. So we did not want to do that. So an initiative spearheaded by Prof, I call him Prof, was to create an academy, a leadership academy, which we call Nyeri Diaspora Leadership Academy. The purpose of the academy is to do two things. We are going to educate these kids through end of high school and probably into college, and we will find the money, whether it's ourselves or raise it from other sources. But beyond that, we are going to give them education beyond the classroom, and that's the leadership, training them to first lead themselves before you ever lead anybody else. And so we're giving them the personal development skill, because that is what makes these children who are from a village and disadvantaged become people who can finish Form 4, go to college, and be agents of their own success and their own development. Because you cannot force someone to succeed. A person has to want to succeed and have to own that development for themselves. And that's the skill we are giving them right now when they're in high school, and we meet with them 3 times a year for a week each time, every time they're in holiday, and we are giving them what I learned in college through my 7 habits of highly effective people. We're giving that to a Form 1 kid, which is incredible, and I'm really excited about that program. And then the other thing that is of interest to me now that you pulled me into this space is Elevate to Thrive, which is a program I'm building to elevate our Kenyan workforce to get ready for the international labor market and for outsourcing. And so I'm going to connect with some of you along the way as I develop that program, because that's what we need. Because at the end of the day, what has made China, what has made India, what has made Korea and some of these countries what they are today is outsourcing, and it is actually labor outsourcing, and it's not sending people out, it's bringing labor in. And is our workforce ready for that? That's what I'm interested in.
Thank you. Oh my God. You know, Catherine, I'm so glad you're part. Wajori, Dr. Shuri, and many others who are here with us, they are part of that Dairy Academy. Besides that education, we send those kids to the villages, go and do something for your community. Wajori here is more concerned about agriculture, so they do some agricultural stuff there. And then they also plant trees. They also do some simple sack gardening, some other stuff. Those kids now on Monday, they are walking in very ready, feeling good because they know their fees is paid and they have done their work. Their parents, we asked them to give some money, they only give 7,000 shillings, but he said that's not the point. They are proud that they have planted the trees, they have done it. We are all partners. We empower everybody, and you are feeling very good. I will finish up with the students a little bit later, but within 1 minute, David, if you can come here please, 1 minute. Kenya is going through a dynamic change. Most of us went through the traditional systems. I want people to be aware, particularly those in the diaspora and everywhere else. Within 1 minute, can you, David, talk about CBC, please? Okay. Yes, could you say something? Because I know you've been involved there. Okay. I'm only giving you 1 minute, my friend, because those people are showing me the sites. Can I have this one?
Oh, thank you.
Yes, talk about what changes are going on.
Yes, I'm Jambo. So I'll condense mine. Of course, I have, 1 minute, 55 seconds left. Thank you all so much for what you've spoken about. And I want to comment more so on the competency-based education. Really, that has been a big topic, especially at the inception of the new government. I think you guys remember at the time this new administration came into power, there was a lot of discussions on where the 6th grade should be domiciled. I think they transitioned it from junior high school, from primary school to junior high school, but that was so much the predicate on discussing more so about the competency-based education, and the president appointed some of us in the diaspora, Professor Chirono, some of you know her, and I was fortunate enough to serve in our team trying to really speak about what needs to happen. The long and short of it, it seems that it has fizzled out now because we don't really hear much about that. And I don't know what's going on, but the truth of the matter is, and this probably goes to you, Waishmiwers, that, you know, when we hear our president or those of you in leadership talk about, you know, finding jobs for our people, I think there's an opportunity to improve our education system so that it moves more so from the theoretical part of it, which is really what we've been focused on for as long as I can remember. You know, we did a lot of theory in school, not so much the practical application of what needs to happen in terms of educating our folks, our young kids, especially at a younger age. And I'm so glad, I didn't know that we share the same profession, Catherine. I'm so impressed about that, but also what you focused on. The bottom line is, guys, I mean, let me not make any qualms about this. We have a problem. Our education system, it's not so much that it's broken, but we're failing our students. We're failing our young kids that are coming up now. There's geopolitical realignment going on right now. As Catherine said, folks are moving companies are looking where to export or outsource their jobs. We're not ready. We're not ready. We're not ready, guys. So in the diaspora, there's so many of us that call ourselves subject matter experts in those areas that we think will build value so that we end up creating those jobs back in Kenya, so we start making things, right, as opposed to actually importing things. Anytime you import anything, whether it's a shirt, anything that we import to our country, It's a job we've created somewhere else. I don't need to tell you that. We all know that. It's a job we've created some other place. So when we spend a lot of time in school and take this 5 seconds, okay, I'm done. I can speak all day. But the message we want you to have, we have the subject matter expertise here that we want to share with you on practical realignment of our education system. And it all boils down to curriculum design. Our curriculum is not designed to address the needs of the future, where the globe, the world is going. So thank you for your time, but I could go on and on. Thank you.
Please clap for this, David. I love David because he is in a different organization called Akidoi, but we are partners, and he traveled all the way from Atlanta. Thank you. Because of the time factor. By the way, let me get back, because we have the parliamentarians here. We are proud of the CBC. Let me just say that. It may have teething problems, but competency to have these, like these young men allowed here, or these, they work like Catherine and everyone else doing, it's where we are going. The concept is good, competency based. Implementation may be having issues, but we are there to help you too. I've done some research. I just presented in Chicago on CBC. I'm going to do another presentation on the same type, something else, by the end of this month in Athens, Greece. I've been invited to talk about that because I'm very proud of what Kenya is doing. We may have challenges, but education is moving on in the right direction, and I'm proud of it. So now, to loud this up, by the way, I wanted to say this. The way what Catherine is doing, preparing people, I remember my mother telling me, don't make the village your world. Make the world your village. Amen. That's a long time ago. Don't just look at the girls around here. There are many beautiful girls out there. Don't look at everybody. I hope my wife, I'll not be in trouble with that. But anyway, the point is, the world is there for us, and what Catherine is preparing for us. When I was invited to teach in a village called Fort Myers, I was the first black teacher there. I said, okay, I'll go. Mama told me there can be good people there, there can be bad people there, just do whatever. Yeah. Prepare our people for this kind of people. So I will start with you, Paul. One last minute, closing remarks. I finish up with George. We go loud. No, I'll finish up with this young man. Yes, Paul, let's start. Half a minute.
Thank you, Professor. I appreciate all the discussions are going, but because we began with the word of God, I always say, even biblically, no one has ever been blessed in their own place, as you are saying. Even Abraham had to leave his country to go. Even Moses was to go and learn in Egypt so that he able to save his people in the slavery. What I mean is, for us to revolutionize our country, and that's have been happening in the Asian countries. And I gave the statistics when I was beginning. They form the largest number of international students. And all the leading institutions for international students, they are from those countries. So for me, talking of 43,000 the whole of Africa and 3,000 from Kenya, is people you can call and tell them to do the right thing. The last thing I'll say, the current youth we have, and that's why we have challenge with them. They see more than they hear. You might give advice and other stuff, but you end up seeing someone who was good in tech ending up maybe in a career, as they call it in DJ. But you feel you have done better. Two, the exposure that you get here is quite important. You always reflect back home. So it's not like we can have brain drain on this side. So when we get the rightful skills here, our country is revolutionized. Lastly, I'll say this. For the people who are doing business, let's trust our young people and students. Let's give them the platform at earliest opportune time. If you're in business, like George was showing how you sing, he's bringing people and showing, and there's nothing like someone who will steal your secret of business. They can know what you are doing, but the passion and the blessing you have, they'll never take it up. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm happy for the diaspora investors and who are Kenyans who are here. I've interacted with them, and you'll feel how they feel big even to get more. But my advocacy is for international students and for the investors and for the registrators. let people come and stand here and they revolutionize even their villages and everywhere. Otherwise, I'm grateful to be an international student from Kenya. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you. Give it, Catherine. Continue.
So the thing that informed me was because two things. I went into private practice, and when I was looking to hire for help, I realized accounting is accounting. Double entry is double entry, no matter where it is in the world. A journal entry is a journal entry. A debit and a credit doesn't change whether you're in Kenya or you're in the United States. And then, so I went out and hired an accountant, a full-time accountant who sits in Nairobi. And that's when I started to realize, why do we not have our labor available to the mini CPA firms here? Why do we, I have a virtual assistant who is here in the US because I'm not ready to hire a virtual assistant from Kenya. So my point is, and that's what started to inform me, because 2 years ago I left private equity and went to work for myself. So I think Kenya is primed. Meg, the ambassador of US to Kenya, said Kenya has an educated workforce. We just need to get it ready for the international market. And I'm telling you, that will be the catalyst that will catapult Kenya economically, as we have seen with China and India.
That's right.
I'm going to finish with from where I started. So education is really exchange of ideas, but also a networking, and it also unlocks the potential we have. And once that becomes possible, then everything goes very quickly. My students have done a 6-minute video about the work I've done, and I'm actually like to ask you to share the link to watch it, because I don't like to speak a lot about myself, really, because I believe the best way is to share the experiences we have. The other thing I want to mention is that education is the only hope we have to end discrimination, to empower ideas that can make our world better, but most importantly, it is the best option that will take us forward. And I want to close with this. Education does not necessarily mean people have to have certain paperwork they were finished, like maybe a PhD or whatever. Education is a lot to do with how you connect with your fellow human being and learn to use what is best they have to bring the best outcomes for our world. If we do that with honesty and genuineness, I think we can do a lot. And we have seen that happen with the people I've worked with. So I hope that we can keep that moving forward.
I love what you're doing, David. And I know you have the International Forum here, and you have many professors who will be listening to this from Kenya and Israel. My friends, don't be the miseducated Negro like Carter Woodson talked about when he talked about miseducation of the Negro. Education is to bring you back to your community, not to take you out. Just because you have become a professor does not mean now you live in a world of your own, the ivory tower. Go back to your Mother Queen village. That's where you came from. That's where your education will be of worth. And Mheshimiwas, please try to get us back to our villages. Sometimes we feel disconnect. Because some of the Mheshimiwas, not you guys, they feel like we are threatening them when we start a little project there. We are not a threat to you. We are partners. Help us. And when people like George here reach out, he's not trying to campaign to become anything. He's just doing, sometimes we're just doing work because, the good work because it's the right thing to do. George.
Wow, Mother Teresa said that if you cannot support everyone, you only support one. If you cannot mentor everyone, just mentor one. And for us, we started a program whereby we are also incorporating university graduates to join Optiven. And every quarter, we are picking 30 of them. We mentor them, we train them on how the job market looks like. And the program is fantastic. And before I conclude, I'm also an author. I've authored 3 books. One of the books is How to Start Small and Build an Empire. It's a fantastic book. I use it for mentorship. The other one is my memoir, and the other one is After Pledge. They are all available on Amazon. It's only $15. You can download it and read it. and looking forward to seeing you in Kenya. When you come to Kenya, we are in Absa Plaza, Loita Street. We are also in Karen, and you can pay us a visit. We are very hospitable. There is always coffee at Optiven. So God bless you. I value every one of you. And those who are in the US, please visit Kenya. Kenya is one of the best countries to visit. It's beautiful, it's amazing, and there is something for everyone. Thank you, Professor, for this opportunity. We really appreciate this OVC forum. Asante.
Okay, thank you. Mine is directed to the government delegation that has come here to help us to promote quality education in Kenya and education that has values. Because if you look at an American system of education, it is very transformative and it creates values for people who graduate from that system. We know it's wrong to steal, it's wrong to engage in corruption and so on. But at the moment, our education system, we have helped, as professors, we have done our role. But at the moment when the graduates that we get from our universities and our schools, the performance when they get to the government level, I mean when they're employed, I think there's something wrong, and I think it is because of our leadership. And as you can see, if we don't have values in education system, that's why you find many of our politicians and other people in our country, they get fake qualifications, and it's known, and you cannot question anything about it. So value is very, very important. Kenyan values are very important if we can instill them to our education system. And if we can learn also from our friends in diaspora, that can be very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is beautiful. Guys, I hope there's a lot more we can do in education. There's a lot more we can talk about. But I also wanted out, was one voice when we came together. I see Dr. Shuri went out, I wanted him to say this, but he's good. We started bringing some students. Oh, Dr. Shuri, come here. He's here. We met with Dr. Shuri, we said, we can connect with for some students, bring them here, and then we had an MOU with the local school district. They work there as they start. We'll talk about it later, because I'm so proud of that project. The FGCU project, the student teachers.
Yes, what Professor Nyongo is alluding to is we have these projects where we are getting student teachers from Kenya, actually people who have already graduated very, very well and they're seeking master level education here, and during the time that they're doing master education, they are also becoming teachers in Florida, in one of the counties in Florida. It's a project that we really are very proud of, led of course here by our prof, and also in partnership with the Florida Gulf Coast University and one of the counties in Florida. I think it's called Lee County. And this is a project that we would want to perhaps even expand so that other universities here can give access to our graduate teachers in Kenya or in East Africa to come and while they are studying to also have opportunities to work. It's a great project and we are proud of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope you have heard. Connect with Dr. Shuri. There are people there in your constituency who can benefit from these kind of projects. And then they can in turn go back to the village, their mother in the village there, and help it. But at the bottom line, whatever education you get, you must be of service. It's useless if it's all yours. It's useless no matter where you are for anybody. If you are not serving your community, you are nothing. You're nothing. And this is why I wanted to finish up with this young man from Uganda. He is still, how is your GPA?
3.42.
He is still passing his exams. He's beating Hawa Zungwote, but he's still doing a lot more in his village. So let's finish this part with this young man to teach us what we can do in our little villages. Matthias. 1 minute.
Well, thank you so much. I want to close by appreciating my wonderful professor for giving me this opportunity. Of course. And my beautiful university, Colorado Mesa University, and the Academic Affairs Office for sending me here. It has been like eye-opening for me to sit amongst my brothers and sisters from the African region that have been empowered more than I can put in words. Well, with the work that I do, it's all about empowering people. It's all about sustainability. In my life, I don't want to do something and I keep doing it forever. I want to make sure I do something that will take care of itself when I'm gone.
Thank you.
And I recently met a mother when I went to Africa, and she was in tears and crying because she needed support for the child she was raising, and she didn't have resources. So I was like, God, how can I do this? So the idea of having a primary school took care of that, and the idea of having women empowerment projects took care of that. So what I do, I don't give hands down, I don't give free services. I know that my people are poor, but I call them to the table and we sit together and I ask them, how can I help? And they tell me, if they don't have money, they have time to come and work in my farms, which we turn that time out into tuition for their children. And if they can't work in my farm, they can go work in their farm, they bring the food, and then we turn around and feed it to their children, because every child who comes to my school is entitled to have breakfast and lunch. And so sustainability is huge. So I'm going to end with this. There's a lot of things that I do, but I'm going to end with this. I'm going to end with James 1:27. The scripture says that true and pure religion in the eyes of our God the Father is this. It's not going to church every Sunday. It's not what most of us do think. True and pure religion according to God's word, I'm a Christian, it's to visit the orphans and the widows in terms of their distress, and to keep ourselves not to be polluted by the world. How can we be polluted by the world? By allowing the love of money to take over us. Let's do what we do, knowing that we are making an impact that is going to last for a lifetime. And that impact you do for the rest of these, for another person you don't know and you don't expect anything from them, that goes a long way. I love you all. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, this panel gets over, but Dr. Shotis was asked to say the vote of thanks to the panel. Dr. Shoti? That's it. The panel has finished its work. It's now a vote of thanks to a big-time educator who's a mentor also. And then we can close this and go for lunch.
Thank you, Prof. And my name is Charles Choti, and I live in Washington, D.C. This is part of my neighborhood, and I'm from Kenya. Actually, I've been in Kenya. I traveled purposely to come and attend this Expo, and I go back through some unfinished business. This has been very wonderful, very powerful, and the combination of the panelists was very, very resourceful, and the impact on listeners has been, especially if I speak on it, was good. You have communicated very effectively. You have given us certain insights which are extremely of value to us, and I think we have also communicated to our leaders. Those leaders from Kenya who are here, we appreciate you and we recognize you. And this kind of communication is very important, very important. when you go back to the country, kindly find a way to address the situation, educational situation, especially in our universities. I've been a university professor for many years. I was in some universities. A few weeks ago, a week ago, I was in one of the universities. Kindly find a way and understand what is happening in our universities, and give our students, our young people, the best you could give them when they are undertaking their university studies. I see you, Honorable Sunguri. I know you are very accomplished educationally, and your colleagues. I remember that you remember the days you went through universities education. I remember what was there. What is happening there today is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. I want to go on record on that. It's unacceptable. We have to find a way as Kenyans in the diaspora, back in the country, and make sure that our young people get the best, because they are the future. They are the future of our societies, the future of our civilization, and the future of Africa. Let us give them the best. We can even sacrifice our own lives. Let us sacrifice our own lives and give our young people the best they can wish to sustain after graduation. That is not what they are getting today. That is not what they are getting today, and you cannot question that. Professor Chacha is here. He can testify to what I've said. The situation the way it is needs some emergency measures, and we have the people that we can do it. We can do it. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. God bless you.
Always good, my brother. So Dr. Jyoti is the one who spoke to the president 5 months ago in December. He told him the same thing. The thing about him is he doesn't mince words. He just speaks his mind. Thank you so much. We like you. So, to everybody, to my team, stand up and take photos now. We can take photo pictures now, and then we'll have lunch. David, thank you so much. Everybody, Dr. Shiori, everybody. Is there anything else, Dr. Shiori? We just go for lunch. Is there an announcement? Yes. Thank you so much to this panel. Please give a big one to my panel. Man, we tried, you know. Here. Oh, he's coming. Wants to take the picture. Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
All right, look at the cell phone. Good? My turn?
Where did Dr. Choti go? Dr. Choti, you're meant to be here. Choti. Hey, come here. Hey, what is this? Hey, even you, David. David, you were meant to be here. Hey, you're part of my panel, man. What's wrong? Not happy. David.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. If I may, I'm going to ask you guys to take one step this way so we can have the last person get in there. That's perfect. Thank you. All right, looking at the cell phones first. That's good? Perfect. All right, you guys are looking at my camera today. I'm the professional in the room. Got a good laugh out of it, so that's what matters, right? All right, 1, 2, 3. And we are good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Thank you. Good job. Good job. You did great. We are getting to the next panelist. Please get moving. Okay. So what we're gonna do here, there will be the next panel is going on, and there will be a snack which will be going on at the same time. So what we want you to do is the next moderator is now going to adopt that model that we just had. We are going to just stick with the panel members. That was planned, but we are not going to have further people coming into the panel. So please, the next panel, get ready to go. Ready to go. job. This was really the most. But we want the panel again. Did you call that? It is Okari, right? Yeah. Jeremiah Okari, please get your panel going. Alex? Now you can go. I took several on my own, so we should be able to. So don't worry. You can go now with your thing in you up, but come back around by 5. Okay.
Testing.
And so they know after this program, fintech and small business. Okay.
Right now it's the agriculture.
Agriculture, him. I need him.
Agriculture and food security. So, agriculture and food security panel, please get moving.
You want to start?
If you are in that panel, please get moving because of time.
Why do you want to start? Just to introduce.
To introduce that one will be let Minor start with that. Let Minor.
Minor wants to come down.
How many do we have?
Let me answer the second one.
You know, what is the role of agriculture in Kenya's economy?
Yeah.
Can you answer that?
I can do that.
Okay. And then I will bring in Dr. George. I will disregard question 1 now. Remove 1. I start with you.
Yeah.
And then George will come.
Okay.
Maila will come. And then you will. Then I will have you talk about.
Yeah. And here I'll be playing a little pop.
Okay. So 2 purple. Maila. So you'll be the first. You'll be the first.
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't want them to
They're waiting for you.
Oh!
Yeah.
Because
Good job. Yes.
that's it. This is because of they 1 hour. Not going to allow that calling people from.
No, I don't do that. Yeah. I don't do that. I don't do that.
This was this as a special, but we're not going to.
No, we don't do that. Testing.
Get going.
Testing.
Who will miss it?
Yeah? Oh no, Dr. Church is here, Dr. Shul is here, mine is here. So the team is here. Yeah. You say to my sister next.
Okay.
But she will go fast. It's not yet. She will, then you. Okay. And then my name is here. And I will come. Okay. And then all of us will contribute to this, the diaspora. That's it. Okay.
Like from Kisii.
Yes.
Right now? Each charger is going. You have to break at 6. And you have to do some shopping somewhere.
Oh,
Let him not go shopping until he may get late. So.
Okay, mine, are you ready?
let's get started here, please. May we have your attention, please? Okay. Your attention. Okay. Okay, welcome. Justice.
Parliament,
Sigoin.
Yes, Justice
Justice Kime.
This name is not, it's a middle name. No, this is the middle name. It's not known anywhere. Kemei is the one which is known.
Kime. Let's talk about Kime.
Justice Kemei.
Honorable, yeah, Justice Kime, that's it.
So then we bring Kemei with you. First question.
Yeah.
And what is the role?
Yes, that's
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a first question for you.
Ben Kibwata, where are you, please? We need your help.
Okay. Yeah, right. You start us, all right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Okay, can we let's get Ben when you're ready. Are we live? Okay, let's know if we're live, Ben.
If you don't know, you'll be sitting here and somebody in Kenya is watching you because you are going live. So sometimes if you are not aware, you'll be doing stuff and nobody.
You have
Yes.
I didn't want him to surprise you.
Yeah.
Guys, are we live? Ask them, are we live? Are they ready? Okay. All right. It's okay, that's fine.
No, he suggested, he has the PowerPoints. And you have the video ready? Does he have the video ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so get the PowerPoint.
I'm saying I asked him to do the PowerPoint. There's those 3 slides in the middle.
Seems like he's taking time.
Okay, let's get started, please. Let's get started. Yes. Professor Nyongo and your team, please.
Let's get be seated and so the panel can get going. Hey, Prof, please let us get going. The pictures, we are on a different time zone now. Please, let's get going. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Jake. Welcome again to another panel discussion. This time we're going to focus on food security in Kenya and agriculture, and we are very lucky to have distinguished guests, people who are very knowledgeable in this subject, and therefore they really don't need a lot of introductions. I'll just do a quick introduction, then we'll dive straight into the discussion. So we're privileged to my left. For the first time, allow me to coast a little bit. I do have my sister from Kisii land. Everybody has been talking about Kilifi, about all this part of the country, but for the first time I have a sister of mine from Kisii land, Dr. Trufena Choti, and by the way, she's home, she's from here in Maryland, so she'll talk to us in a moment. Also to my left, we don't need to introduce him, Dr. Apatiori, our president,
Now we have him on the hot seat, and if you have any questions, we're going to direct those questions to him. So that's good for us. And then immediately after him, we have Honorable Kimei. He's lucky enough, one of the delegates from Kenya, a member of parliament, and a man who has who's done great, not just for his constituencies, but who's done incredible work for our country. So we'll be hearing from him here in a moment. We also have Peter Maina, a very knowledgeable person, an entrepreneur, and one of the sponsors of this organization. In a moment as well, we'll hear from them. But first, because the focus is about food security in Kenya and the agriculture sector in Kenya, we'll have Justice Kimei begin us with the first question. And if you want to add anything about yourself, please feel free to do so. But the first question will go to Justice Kimei, and the question is, what is the role of agriculture in Kenya's economy?
Thank you very much. Once more, I would wish to introduce myself. My name is Justice Kimei. I am the Member of Parliament for the Orishun constituency in Kisumu County. A member of the
Livestock Committee of the National Assembly, and I have spent a greater part of my life in agriculture. I have been the Public Relations Manager of the National Cereals and Produce Board, which is the country's grain marketing body. I've been the head of marketing and corporate affairs of Chemel Sugar Company. And in the 11th Parliament, I was a member of the Agriculture Committee, where I still serve to date. Agriculture remains the backbone of the economy of Kenya. Without going into statistics, basically agriculture contributes more than 50% of the GDP of the country. It is the largest export earner, where we export coffee, we export tea, we export horticulture, and in terms of foreign exchange, we still rely largely on agriculture. Agriculture is the source of raw materials for the manufacturing sector. Whatever we produce, we have to process, and when we process, it generates the raw materials required by the manufacturing sector. Agriculture remains the largest employer of the Kenyan population. The entire, almost 60-65% of the labor in Kenya rely on agriculture as a source of livelihood. And going forward, agriculture will provide the opportunity for investments in technology and also help the service industry in our country. So by and large, we can say agriculture remains the backbone of the economy of Kenya, and for the short term and for the medium term, it's a very vital sector that requires input. There are challenges that we are experiencing at the moment. We are moving away from the more arable areas of our country to the marginal areas. So we will not continue relying on rain-fed agriculture. We will have to do irrigation if we were to produce more for our country and even for export. The other challenge which we're experiencing in the country is that the value chain needs to be transformed almost entirely so that the benefits go to the farmer more than those in the marketing chain, and that kind of transformation is required. This is where we will rely on new people who have been outside the country in terms of the technology, in terms of know-how, how we can transform the value chain in the marketing, in the agricultural sector, so that the people of our country benefit more from agriculture. And also the opportunities in the export market. We produce crops like avocado. The export market for avocado is huge in the whole world. We rely on you so that we can be able to get to know the markets for avocado and to link us with those markets in Asia, in China, even in the United States of America. And lastly, agriculture needs to benefit more from information technology. The times when we used to rely on looking at the weather and deciding to plant must be gone. We need to rely on information technology so that we can be able to grow agriculture in our country. I would wish to basically say the last aspect of agriculture is that in terms of reducing costs so that we can be more competitive in supplying the regional, the continental, and the world market. We have to lower the cost of farm inputs. We're talking of fertilizer, we're talking of seed, and we require better quality seed. We also want to benefit from biotechnology. Traditional agriculture is not of today. We want to bring on board science as a way of improving agriculture in our country. And finally, I still want to continue saying that with agriculture, the general transformation of the economy of the country is vital. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Justice May. I think it gives us very good context, and that context will inform subsequent discussion and analysis here in a moment. So to my left, I want to turn to Dr. Choti, who will also dig a little bit further and give us his view. Ben, you're on mute. Sorry, my mic, now it's back on, thank you. So I'll just thank you, thank you, Justice Kimei, for giving us that background. And as I said, it gives us context to inform our subsequent discussion. And now we're turning to my left here, Dr. Choti, who will dig a little bit deeper to give us a view of what are some of the challenges facing the agriculture sector in Kenya. That way we can find a gap from which we in the diaspora can help out. Dr. Choti, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kari, for the chance. And my name is Trufena Choti, as you have heard. I am the founder of AFRO-Thrive, where AFRO-Thrive, we are a non-profit organization that serves in the agriculture sector because we increase access to food. We run a farm here in Maryland where we grow culturally appropriate food for consumption. And I'm glad to be part of this panelist. For me, agriculture is ingrained in my blood because I grew up in a humble family in Kisii. And before going to school in the morning, I had to do some farming. Cultivate some vegetables, harvest some paretharam, so it was a way of life for me. And I have spent my career for the past 20 years in development, supporting different countries in terms of working with the farmers and schools to provide school meals. So I've been fortunate to work with about 10 countries to get them to speed in terms of food production so that school children can have food. And so when I look at Kenya's agriculture, as Mheshimiwa has put it, it's not just Kenya specific, actually it's African problem in agriculture. Because Africa or Kenya, we have the great potential for agriculture, but we are not utilizing that potential. Right now we have about 28 to 30 million acres of land that could be utilized for agriculture, but we are only utilizing a section of it. And if we could look at the climate changes we have now, the threat of climate change is real, and farmers are facing significant losses because of climate change. You plant and then the rain is not there. So if you do not irrigate, you suffer losses. And I've had to, experience myself as a small-scale farmer in Transmara. I know Mheshimiwa Singuli is here. I do a little bit of farming in Transmara, Krigoris. And so sometimes I've had to see losses, when the weather changes. And so that's a significant problem that we have to address to see what happens. Another issue that we need to address is cost. Why is it expensive to produce one sack of maize in Kenya than it is in Tanzania or Uganda? And remember, Uganda is landlocked. When fertilizer comes, it has to pass through Kenya to Uganda. So what mechanisms can we put to protect the farmer who has to invest more than 10,000 shillings to produce one sack of maize and sell it for 5,000? So that's a challenge I see there. I see also infrastructure being a challenge. I come from Kisii, where they produce a lot of managu, a lot of nsaga, but then they don't have that value chain infrastructure whereby mama can harvest her mboga the same day and the mboga is in Mombasa the same day. So those losses actually contribute to what is ailing our agriculture sector, because it needs to be the most productive, and agriculture needs to be actually a wealth creation, because most of the people are involved in agriculture. So I think that I could say those two challenges, I think, are more critical when you look at it in a larger scale.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We'll move on. So thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Choti, for the contribution. Just to highlight that, Doctor, this is what she does for a living, and she's traveled to so many countries in Africa to do what she's doing. And she's, as she speaks here, she's talking from a standpoint of authority. And so we take her contribution very seriously, and so we appreciate that. So later on, Dr. Shiuri will be mentioning about the specific issues that office is doing in regard to this issue. But first, I'll ask him to, if he could, contribute to the same question. What are some of the challenges that you see the agriculture sector is facing in Kenya? Dr. Shiuri.
Thank you, Dr. Okari, for that question. Again, my name is Robert Chiori, and founder president for One Voice Consortium. But when I'm not running One Voice Consortium, I have an organization that I started. It's called Global Standards Resource Certification, and principally what we do is to provide quality management systems certification and food safety certifications to companies that are growing or are processing or are marketing and storing food. As you know, food comes from the agricultural farms, it's processed, it's stored somewhere, and then it perhaps ends in a warehouse, and then in a retail place, and then over to the consumer. So a lot of people do a lot of that work in the background that are making sure that that food is safe, that it arrives to you right from farm to table in a safe way. Those are quality practitioners, those are food safety practitioners that are responsible for that particular area. And so Global Standards Resource Certification does a lot of that work of certifying farmers, growers, processors, exporters, and also others in that value chain to ensure that products arriving to the market are food safe and quality oriented. As you well know, we have nowadays a very, very design, customer
or market-based. People who are informed, they want to know where this product is coming from, where this agricultural produce is from, what is in that environment, what is it that can affect me. And so today's world, even that farmer that is in Kenya needs to be aware what the market, especially the importing market requirements are, and especially the standards, so that they can be able to grow and process and market and store products that are that is the requirement of the market base or the consumer. And so my organization does a lot of the certifications for these farmers, and we've been doing that through a lot of training programs, because as you know, farmers have to be trained on standards, they have to be trained on market preparation, they have been trained even on packaging, so that they are packing in a way that this product arrives to the customer in a way that they require it. So all this is an area that our African farmers and our Kenyan farmers need to be educated more on, because this is the way of today's market, in terms of ensuring that the agricultural products ends into the market in the right way. And that is where we are seeing a really an area where is that can be improved, especially accessing quality training for the farmers to ensure that they get that product, the right product, into the market.
Okay, thank you. We're going to switch here because people are watching from around the globe. So what just happened here, a lot of people are watching, including government in Kenya. So we're going to take a diverge a little bit, because Professor Anyang Nyongo is standing by in Kisumu, Kenya, and he will make a quick contribution to the discussion, and then we'll get back to the discussion. So I'll allow Ben to bring in Professor Anyang Nyongo, who happens to be the governor of Kisumu. So that tells you that this, whatever we're doing here is not just here. People all around the globe are watching this. So Ben, if you could bring in, please, the governor.
Just keep going.
Okay, thank you. So as soon as you do, just signal. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shuri. Thank you, Dr. Shuri. I also wanted to mention, in addition to Dr. Shuri working so hard as president here, this is what he does for a living. Every time I call him, he's telling me he's on flight, I'm at the airport, doing the same thing for the American farmer. And if he can do that for the American farmer, surely he can do something for the Kenyan farmer. With that said, I want to introduce Peter Maina here. Great work. Peter Maina, if you could lead us to the next section, and let's talk about food security in Kenya. What is the state of food security in Kenya, and what are some of the challenges that the Kenyans are facing at the moment?
My name is Peter Maina. I think I'm on. My name is Peter Maina, CEO of United Communications. And I know you might wonder, what is this tech guy doing here with agriculture? It's because I also like eating, and I like to have good food, and I like to see my neighbors when I go to Kenya, people not struggling. We are always joining Kenyans to pray for rain and to have food in the country. And I'm one of those people, when you get to the point of praying, you just don't pray like you're testing God. You pray to get answers and to get to know what to do. And we have many challenges in our country, but the biggest of those challenges can be summed, I see Professor up, can be summed as space. Okay.
Do we have him on? Yeah. Okay, so thank you, and then bring him on then. Oh, sorry, I'm reminded to introduce Professor Anyang Nyongo, who is joining us live from Kisumu, Kenya. By the way, Professor, thank you so much for joining us. The OBC Expo here in Washington is ongoing, and it's going very well.
As you join the conversation, please note that okay, so there are so many Kenyans and friends of Kenya in the house, and many of them watching from across the U.S. and parts of the world. So we're glad to have you here on, and we'll allow you to make your contribution.
Good evening. I hope you are hearing me because I've been having problems with connection to the meeting. I've been listening, but you are hearing me. Can you confirm you are hearing me? Hello? 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 Can you confirm you are hearing me? Oh, Lord. Can you confirm you are hearing me? I can't hear anything. Hello? Hello?
Are you there, Prof?
The connection is really bad. Hello?
Okay, Professor, can you hear us now?
I can hear you.
Hello, Prof?
Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you.
Go ahead, Prof.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Okay, Prof, we can hear you.
The connection is really bad. I don't know why.
Continue, Prof.
Okay, fine. Look, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this forum, which I think is extremely important. And I've been listening to the discussions on agriculture, very interesting. But one thing that we should realize in Africa, particularly in countries like Kenya, which were basically agricultural during colonial times, and agriculture has continued to play a very important role in the economy. But since independence, manufacturing, industry, and other sectors of the economies have grown. In many ways, we lost a step somewhere in agriculture. That is financing agricultural production in a place like Kenya. I don't think the independence government was foolish to have introduced entities like Agricultural Finance Corporation of Kenya, Coffee Board of Kenya, Bilateral Board, and so on. There were many parastatals that were preoccupied with two things. One, marketing agricultural crops, and secondly, financing agriculture. It is true that if you look at that structure of financing, maybe it tended to favor large-scale agriculture as opposed to small-scale agriculture, peasant agriculture. And that was very true in the sugar industry, where outgrowers did have access to the market in terms of access to factories where they sold their cane and got stable prices over time, not necessarily commensurate with the labor that the farmers put in production, but nonetheless was stable over time because the market in terms of the factories was stable. Unfortunately, over the last 20 years, this arrangement, which had lasted quite a long time since colonial time, and mainly after independence, broke down. As you know, the sugar factories or industries collapsed, most of them state-owned. Coffee Board of Kenya collapsed, Bilateral Board collapsed, Cotton Lint and Seed Marketing Board collapsed, and most of these collapsed in the 80s, really. The Cotton Lint and Seed Marketing Board collapsed in our very eyes in 1981, very, very dramatically. And this meant that especially small-scale agriculture lost both stable access to market, stable prices, and of course financing. Now, I think what the NAC government tried to do was trying to rejuvenate this sector, this arrangement. But you know, the NAC government didn't last for long. I don't think that 5 years is good enough to achieve much in restructuring agriculture. And since then, we have been having policies which I would say are hit and run policies, both access to market by small-scale producers and stable prices for crops. As I speak now, in a place like Washington, D.C., the maize industry is more or less collapsed, and some people prefer growing sugarcane. But the sugarcane industry, as you know, I was in a committee that was called the Oparanya Committee, as it were, which produced a report to do something about the sugar industry. That report has not been implemented up to now. So we are living at a time when we need continued reform, both in terms of supporting agricultural production and in terms of market access. So far, I do not think that we have succeeded in coming out with a clear policy in that regard. But farmers are usually very resilient creatures. They will continue farming under thick and thin, and they will continue losing in many ways, sometimes due to floods like we are seeing in the Nyongo Valley now, sometimes due to producing crops which cannot access markets. There are studies have been done in small-scale agriculture where agricultural produce don't reach the market and they rot in homes and so on, especially horticulture, fruit, vegetables. And yet we know that at the same time we import some of these commodities, especially for urban dwellers. So I think what we need to do really is to ask those people who are doing research in the agricultural sector to continue coming out with accurate data on what causes losses in terms of harvest losses in agriculture. How can these produce reach the market? How can prices stabilize? Because the market alone, left to itself, is not going to regulate or going to stabilize agriculture. Everywhere in the world, state intervention in agricultural production is always there. I remember when I lived, the US government was always coming in and to buy maize in places like Iowa, and sometimes just throw it into the ocean so that farmers can get stable prices. I'd rather that the US has used that maize and sent it somewhere where it was needed, like in countries which don't have large scale. But anyway, that was their choice. So, but that shows you that the US government was concerned about stabilizing prices in the agricultural sector, even if it means buying maize from Iowa and places like and throwing it into the ocean. Okay, and they could use that maize to feed cattle. Yes, they do, but sometimes there's overproduction because the domestic markets are saturated with that particular product. In short, what I'm saying is that from what I see sitting in a governor's seat is that we need to invest heavily in agro-industrial sector, infuse a lot of capital, build infrastructure, expand access to market for farmers locally and internationally. Once you do that, like the colonial government showed, people can move from subsistence production to commercial production. Subsistence production is not there to stay in history forever, as the colonial government showed very clearly that you can't do that. And after independence, with the marketing boards, as I've said, there was great transformation in production. But we have seen agriculture entering all kinds of tumultuous time over the last 20 years. And we seem to take steps which do not address the issue holistically. I think that debate is necessary now that we are focusing on a new direction in our politics, we should also focus on a new direction on how we deal with agriculture in those three areas: production, stable prices, access to market. I think the present policy of the UDA government of having industrial parks as well as aggregation centers makes sense, but it should not be applied uniformly in every county, because each county has different endowments in terms of agricultural production. At the same time, we know definitely that if we can have aggregation centers which farmers take their produce and get a good price, they will take it there. So whether that produce is then going to be circulated in the local market or exported. But I think that's maybe a way of addressing the issue of access to market and stable prices. You have an aggregation center where people take their produce, it is bought at a price that they know, which is attractive, and then it then reaches the market locally and internationally. Thank you so much. I have finished, actually.
You taking the time late in the evening. No problem. Thank you. So, Governor Nyongo, thank you so much for joining us live here, taking time late in the night to be part of this conversation, not just for the interest of the people of Kisumu, but the people of Kenya and friends of Kenya who are gathered here today, and most of them watching from around the globe. So to you, thank you very much, and through you, thank you to the people of Kisumu and the people of Kenya. We send our love. Of course, I speak on behalf of everybody and behalf of the President, Dr. Robert Chiuri, who is joining us live. So then let's get back to the discussion here, and we'll continue the conversation with Peter Maina. And Peter Maina, if you could quickly respond to the Governor's comments and then dive into this.
Thank you so much, Governor, Professor Nyongo. You always come through for Kenya, thinking as a good planner. I know your contribution in the area of ICT in 2005. A short walk in New York with you resulted in us being able to formulate a policy on voice of IP for Kenya, and you came through with your words to me through emails, and something that had defeated us several conferences in Kenya was you worked on it for about 3 weeks with your colleagues, and we got things done. And you raised a very important point today about challenge of financing agriculture in the country. Almost 75% of our population in Kenya is concentrated around 20-25% of the country. That's the beginning of our agriculture challenge. Production of food and high population are in conflict. We don't have enough land in the rain-fed part of Kenya to support a growing population now heading up to 57. Yet over 70% of our country is left with a population of about 20%, 25% of Kenyans, and there's a massive land there that we could grow all sorts of crops. For those who are showing the slide, if you could screen the slide number 2, it will show you the challenge we have is that the climatic condition of our country need a lot of intervention, financial intervention, to be able to tap to a greater part of the land we are tapping right now for agriculture. And this is affecting lack of financing agricultural systems, water harvesting system, water distribution systems, and infrastructure for marketing, value chain processing. Lack of financing in those areas has resulted with 80% of the population living in a very small area, a piece of land becoming so expensive. An average medium income Kenyan, by the time they finish buying that plot, to to get Optivan, AMC, and Sol Merchant and others to build them a house. They have no money to invest in the stock market. They have no money to invest anywhere else. We can attack this, and this is what Diaspora has come up to propose. Diaspora in the last 3 months has come up with an idea that first we have to eliminate the silo mentality we have had here, to be different grouping, and to come together. OVC, Kenya Diaspora Alliance, it doesn't matter what your label is. We can come together, put together a pool of expertise, put together a pool of lobbyists, put together a people that can be able to help the Kenya government spread agricultural activities to the rest of the 70% of our country. And we've come up with something called food security bond to tackle this challenge. The food security bond is supposed to be a $30 billion fund. That is the floor, not the ceiling. And we've realized it is not impossible. 2008, the world had a word from a man with a Kenyan blood, telling them, yes, we can. Yes, we can. And nobody ever thought a black man could be elected the president of the United States. A Kenyan son. Yes, we can defeat this challenge. We can get the pastoralists of northern Kenya to become some of the most wealthiest Kenyans by converting those dry land into fodder fields, into agricultural cornfields, by bringing water to every Turkana family, to every Borana family. It is doable. If you can show me, you can screen that, if you are able to show that slide, I can show you that without massive financing, we are just playing games. It's like going to chase a lion from your boma with a stick. Poverty in Kenya is a bold enemy. The challenge here is a bold challenge. We cannot go softly anymore. We need all of us to come together, attack it boldly, courageously, and we can conquer this. We can direct diaspora investment into this bond. We will ask our registrator to work very hard to make sure the investment into it is tax-free, that people are putting something into a project that is helping the whole country. I don't have to take my investment only to my Nakuru home. I can be investing money and it will be used all over Kenya, from Mandera to Vanga. And that's what we are proposing in the Diaspora Food Security Consortium. It's called Food Security Bond Initiative. It's an initiative right now. The website is ready. It should go public as soon as we finish encrypting. I think we can finish encryption tomorrow, and it is going public. We will be asking Diaspora to log in and join the blog and give us your details. We are going to protect your data, and we want you to contribute your ideas. Not just talk. The time of talking is over. It's action time. I would like to show that slide if those people are there or they're eating. 1 or 2 slides. The system is not working. Okay. I would have liked to show the slide because
maybe a quick comment to Professor Nyongo's remarks. First of all, we appreciate Professor Nyong as a scholar and as a leader in our country. And there are 3 fundamental things that he raised, which I want to agree with him 100%. The investments in agriculture in our country is below par. We're investing about 3% of GDP to agriculture, instead of even the recommendation of the Maputo Declaration, Malaga Declaration, which require us to spend as much as 10% so that agriculture can be able to contribute more meaningfully to the economy of our country. Secondly, we lose so much in terms of post-harvest losses in our country. Up to 30% of what we produce, we lose because of poor storage, and post-harvest losses basically. So if we're able to control the two, direct more investments to agriculture, control post-harvest losses, then we should be able to achieve food security in our country. Thirdly, Professor Anyang has mentioned about the sugar industry. The sugar industry has a huge potential in our country, and it is moving away from the traditional cane growing areas of Kenya, in western Kenya and coast provinces, even to areas of Masaini. Huge potential. As we speak now, there is an opportunity for investment in a sugar processing facility which will serve the people of Kisumu, the people of Rachonyo, the people of Nyamira, and the people of Kericho counties. 4 counties. An investment that would probably be in the range of about $20 million US, and it will serve the 4 counties to enhance food security and also to enhance agro-processing in our country. And lastly, I want to agree with my colleague. We must move agriculture from the traditional arable areas of our country to the arid and semi-arid lands of our country. That calls for improvement in terms of water technology and irrigation, and it calls for infrastructural development. That way, we should be able to enhance food security in our country. Thank you, and Professor, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll get to you in a moment, but I need to appreciate you. Thank you, Justice Kimei. No disrespect, but I think this is the kind of parliamentarians we need in Kenyan Parliament. People are very objective and who are making cases based on evidence and experience. We do appreciate you. With that, then I introduce here Dr. Choti to contribute on the same question on how do we resolve the food crisis in Kenya.
Thank you, Dr. for the chance, and I want to echo Professor Nyongo for coming up, and I think he touched also one point that really as Kenyans we need to ponder, and I think it's going to take a mindset change. Our institutions are failing, and why are institutions failing? When I grew up, I grew up in Kisii at the border of Transmara and Kisii. The National Cereals Board, I grew up when it was very vibrant in the 80s, whereby the farmers could take their maize to the National Cereals Board. They know they'll get a good price, and the National Cereals Board kept the maize. When it was time to release, it was released. What happened to the National Cereals Board? Because part of this crisis is that how can we empower the National Cereals Board, for example, to play its role? And I want to borrow from the USDA. USDA is a model that we need to pick, because the USDA gives access farmers to have access to loans. They have grants that they can modernize their farming system. And I think this is where the legislators good you are here. Let's create an institution that serves the interest of Kenyans. Let's have our KTDA serve farmers. The tea farmers are not getting a fair share of their tea because of the way it's structured. What can we do to benefit the farmer? How can we invest in the farmer in that if the farmer lost the crop due to floods, we compensate this farmer so that next season they're able to grow? Because I will say, you lost 10 acres of maize because the drought came, you have put hundreds of thousands in it, nobody compensates you for it. How can we make those funds available so that institutions run with transparency, institutions run with protection to the most important person in the country, that's the farmer, because the farmer is feeding our stomachs. Everybody depends on the farmer. The farmer is creating jobs. But how do we need to modernize? And I think this is where our thinking with the bond initiative is coming from, in that we need to change the mindset how we support the farmer. get the farmer have access to the capital they need so that we don't have institutions that are failing. You know, the sugar companies that we have already, they are failing because we have failed to protect the importation of sugar into the country, and the farmer who is producing sugar is not paid in good time. And I think most farmers are getting discouraged, Mheshimiwa. Think about that. So how can we regulate if we are allowing importation? Say it's only 30% of sugar that can come to the country, the rest is local. And then value add is another issue we need to deal with. Instead of us exporting our raw materials outside, we go create jobs for them and they come to sell to us. Because I've been involved in Ghana where they produce cocoa, advising farmers. The farmer gets only 7% profit. But when these raw beans go out, they come and buy at 200%. Why can we stop, that kind of exploitation? I call it exploitation, and invest in diaspora who wants to bring industries in the country to value add avocado, value add, millet, value add all that we have for consumption. If you want to export a finished product, and I think that will be a better value for us, and we will protect the food security in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just we'll come back to this. Thank you. Oh, that's a special one for the lady. Oh, let's join. Oh. I haven't seen this kind of reaction for a long time. My sister, thank you for making us proud. I feel good. She's from my homeland. Now I can feel proud. Meanwhile, we still have Professor Nyongo joining. You want to make an additional comment on what you just said here? And this is exactly what we need, I think, Dr. Shuri, members of parliament and governors in Kenya joining and want to be part of the conversation. So, Professor Nyongo, please, if you could.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
Professor Nyongo, it's your moment if you can respond, make an additional 1 or 2 minutes, and then we can continue.
Repeat the question, please. Repeat to him again.
Hello, Professor Nyongo. We were talking about, the question we had here was how do we deal, or how do we avert the food crisis in Kenya? If you could contribute to that, please.
I think the previous speaker, two speakers actually, hit the nail on the head. People will produce food for two purposes. One, for home consumption, as we know we do. I live now in the, not for the first time, but for the umpteenth time, I now live fully in the rural areas. The pattern has not changed really, of producing food for both for home consumption and for the market. We must understand that even home consumption will be jeopardized if the weather changes, if there are disasters like floods, if inputs are expensive or inappropriate. See, agriculture is an area in which the state must take a lot of interest. Everywhere, I think, not just in a place like Kenya. So that as technology changes, we should also realize that we should benefit from that technology to deal with the inadequate production of food, both for subsistence from the buffer for the market. And I have a feeling that we have had problems not over making, like climate change and floods and so on in this area, which are external to the farmer. I mean, you don't expect a farmer to know something about climate change, quite honestly, in the rural areas, but it affects them. Floods come when they don't expect them. So, state intervention in agriculture, policies of dealing with such issues, and putting in the hands of our farmers enough resources and knowledge to do this. I always think that extension officers have been very important in agriculture because there are people who are given knowledge on a daily basis to go and advise the farmers what to do, but they are no longer there. In the county, of course, we have the agricultural department and we strive to have people who can go and advise farmers, because there are problems farmers cannot solve unless they get some external knowledge. You see, for example, there's a fertilizer called DAP. DAP, when it was first used, was very effective, but it's becoming counterproductive because it impoverishes the soil. Farmers didn't know what was happening when DAP was impoverishing the soil and production was going down. Somebody with knowledge must come up and say, look, it is high time we stop this. And then even things like GMO, a farmer can easily be impressed by GMO because it grows fast, but then, it doesn't have a seed. So next time you want to pick up your maize cob from the kitchen, as we used to do, and take the maize and go and plant it, it will not. So these things really, I think the challenges we're facing, quite honestly, mean, as I said earlier, much more intensive intervention by the state, consciously, to those problems, so that there's what people call capacity building, which is a very good word, I think, a very good concept for farmers. Along with other things we have said today, I think that is important, because the technology of farming cannot continue as it was before. There are better, cheaper, more efficient ways of doing it, which can be adapted in agriculture. It's not just the tractor. I mean, if the tractors worked in Russia and China during their own agrarian revolution, it doesn't mean that the tractor is the thing that can work in small scale. Maybe small scale agriculture, you could have more people working with simpler implements and being paid for work they do, and therefore they both get remuneration from the labor they do, but they're also productive in agriculture. I tell you something that we're doing in Kisumu County. I realized that access road in the rural areas, when I was growing up, there were people from the public works department, and work was actually compulsory every Tuesday for able-bodied men. You had to be given a djembe, a shovel, and whatever, and you go and dig trenches to stop soil erosion. But we realized that now that's not a problem, but access roads are a problem. So why don't we recreate the problem for the youth, give them djembes and shovels and wheelbarrows, so that they go out there and build access roads in the rural areas cost effectively, so that people can access their farms and people can go from one place to the other. So that when somebody dies, for example, we don't need to panic and try to create a road. Our own version of public works department, what we call the road teams, as it were, it's a logical repeat or copy of what happened in colonial times, because those had sense, only that they were compulsory, but you could see the logic of doing that. So I think that we must think creatively in dealing with rural problems, in making sure that agriculture performs, produces food for consumption at the home level, that is important, but also enough food to go to the market, for both the domestic market and foreign market. Because, for example, there's a lot of demand for avocados in the Middle East and in Europe. In my place here, people don't like avocados that much, but it grows even widely. So why not you take a quarter of an acre of a farmer's land, produce avocados, which are then taken to international airport and flown to the Middle East, and then the farmer gets good money for a fruit that he grows that is not necessarily consumed locally that much, but it gets good price at the international market. These are some of the conscious things that in policy making we should think of, and not only think of state jacket policies, which we think have worked elsewhere and must work, or have worked before and must work. No, times have changed. Agriculture has become more complicated. There are much more ways of doing things. Yes, value addition is necessary in agriculture, but not everything can be value added. Maybe some, like avocados, should just be exported where they're in demand, provided they give good prices. So those kinds of policies, dealing with crop after crop, fruit after fruit, and so on, and making sure that three things are achieved: one, good prices for farmers, stable production, okay, over time, and access to market. I think those three things are necessary. I'm sorry, maybe I didn't make sense, but I'm talking as I think.
Testing, good. Thank you, the other one is gone. So thank you, Professor Nyongo. Again, you can stand by. We might have a couple of questions for you once we get to the question and answer session. We've had Dr. Robert Tully, the president of OVC, sitting here for quite some time. He's been quiet and listening to all this. We would allow him also to respond to the same question. Mr. Maina will bring you on. I know you still need a minute. And then if you could also respond to relative to what OVC is thinking in respect to food security in Kenya.
Thank you, Honorable Anyang, Governor of the great county of Kisumu. We appreciate the remarks that you've given us and also the responses. As a One Voice Consortium, we are doing a lot of things that are in the agricultural sector. In fact, we have several of our member organizations that are involved in the agriculture sector. And one of the things that Professor Anyang, Honorable Anyang, has mentioned is about access to markets. And as we can see, that is one area where we really need to work on to make sure that our farmers have access to markets. But access to markets also requires that farmers understand what are the market requirements. They need to understand what the consumers need. And so this is an area that is really very, very important in terms of ensuring that farmers and growers understand product standards. They understand exporting requirements. They understand what is required in the market world, whether it is in Europe, whether it is in US, whether it is in Asia, what that consumer requires. The farmers need to understand that. And partly what we have been doing, we have one organization within One Voice Consortium. It's called Farmers Network App. Farmers Network App is an app-based software that now links over 2 million farmers, not just in Kenya, but around East Africa. And what does this app do? Farmers need information as far as where they can be able to access their inputs and also where they can be able to have access to markets. That information is, as you know, in the internet. It's available. So this app now has been able to provide access to information that the farmer requires as far as service providers that are in their area, so that they can know if it is, for instance, an agronomist who is not too far from where they are, or somebody who is supplying inputs not too far from where they are, or even somebody who can come in and provide certain extension services for their livestock in the farm. So what we are saying is that this app, Farmers Network app, and I don't know whether the team can be able to put it here on the slide. They can be able to show that this app also provides the farmer a way in which they can be able to store information, because as you know, most farmers, one of the problems that they have is record keeping, because farmers want to spend more times in the farm. But in today's world, you need to keep some records. If you want to get a banker or a financial institution to give you a loan or whatever financial support, you need to provide evidence of what you're doing. So this app provides the farmer a way in which they can be able to store information as far as their production, as far as their inputs, and this is on a day-to-day basis, so that at the end of the year, they have a business plan that they can be able to submit. So what we are saying here is that we need to
change the way, just like Dr. Choti said, we need to change the mindset. In today's world of agriculture, we need to forget the traditional ways of farming. We need to make it high-tech. We need to use technology. Every farmer has first of all, every farmer almost has a phone that they can be able to use to call or to tap into information that is accessible in the internet. Whether it is, as I said earlier, training, whether it is markets, whether it is information as far as other service providers in the network. And more importantly, areas of certification. We need to know who they can certify them, because when you look at certifications, the Western world and the Far East, they are ahead of us in Africa because they have used certification schemes that are there, like some of you are aware about ISO standards, international standards, because in today's world you must show that your product meets global standards. Nobody is going to buy anything that is just made in the way that we say in Kenya, juakali, you know, the hot sun, translated. Nobody. That product has to be shown to be meeting certain standards. It can meet local standards, but if you want to export it, it has to meet global standards. And that is why certification schemes like ISO, Global GAP, and I'm sure you know Global GAP stands for Global Good Agricultural Practices. So farmers need to understand what is the global agricultural practices. They need to follow standards that are there, so that now with that kind of certification, they can now be able to access the markets. They can be able to talk a language that a consumer understands. And so we need to change the mindset here so that our farmers can now be using this kind of app-based information to access what they need. And more importantly, it can provide them the link now to financial institutions that can provide support for them, and training institutions that can provide whatever that they need. This is the way that we are saying that we can address some of that. We also have another agricultural project within One Voice. It's called Proximity Point City in Malindi, where a lot of our diaspora people are investing in terms of agriculture. They are already planting pineapples, and I'm sure Professor Lucas mentioned about that earlier, where they are growing pineapples and mangoes for export. In fact, they are producing some of the best pineapple all over. And we are challenging the diaspora to take farming as another great area of investment, so that we can spread our investments not just in one or two or three sectors, but in several sectors that can also provide other things. Because when you provide support in agriculture, and especially in value addition, you are creating jobs. You are creating jobs to that person who is going to be involved in making the product, in processing it, in packaging, in transportation, and all other service providers in that area. So that is the way to go, using technology for the farmer to better our people.
Okay. Very good, thank you, Isi. He's not only the president of our organization, but he's a massively experienced man. I think the kind of resource that our nation and our region really need. So out of respect of time, then is the next panel coming on, and there are many more things we have to do later on. I'll get to the last section of this, and I want to start with Peter Maina. I don't know, Ben, if you have yet a slide, if you have that slide, you could have for him. Just make a comment, respond to Professor Nyongo's comment, and then you make your concluding remark. We'll come to Justice Kimei next, then we'll come to my sister here, Dr. Choti, and as we give him a moment to breathe, Dr. Shuli will conclude for us.
Dr. Choti there mentioned about USAID. In 1862, in the midst of civil war, a very big challenge in this country we are in, Abraham Lincoln formed USAID. And his aim was to create a Department of Agriculture that will be able to be called a people's department. It will provide food, economic development, science, natural resource conservation, and other issues. And he had realized that in the midst of a big challenge in the country. I am, as a planner, I used to be a Kenya Wildlife Service planner. So I am a natural resource planner before I got into ICT. Okay? So I think as a national person, how do we take this land of Kenya and make it work for us, for everybody? If the slides were there, I would like to challenge everybody in the diaspora to see one picture there and tell me whether what you see in Samburu, what you see in Turkana is enough for you to feel comfortable in your home here in the US and forget about Kenya. So this bond issue, we are saying it's like the largest harambe Kenya has had ever. Let the government of Kenya, international organization, the diaspora organization, we will do the lobbying. We are not asking the Kenya government for a penny. We will do the lobbying, we will raise the help the Kenya government with expertise, and we will bring into the country capability to build water harvesting infrastructure, water distribution infrastructure, marketing infrastructure, food processing and storage infrastructure, and many of you here can invest in one of those sectors, and you have one pot of fund that you are applying for your project funding within the country of Kenya. Not him running to IDFC, another one running to IMF, another running to wherever to look for money. We get one fund that all of us can get that money within the country. But we need to work with the government of Kenya. We need the registrator to be as bold. We need Parliament and Senate to be as bold as Abraham Lincoln and say, once and for all, it's okay to pray to God, but once and for all, we don't need to be praying for rain 60 years after our independence. We can finance a stable, perennial agricultural production for every Kenyan. The other thing is the job creation that agriculture creates. From weeding technician, to planting technician, whatever level of education you are in, you can be employed by this sector. And what we are talking about here in this bond is only 30% of Kenya's GDP. Only 30%. The Kenyan GDP is about 13-point-something trillion. I just got some statistics from my friend Dr. Ochoa when I was seated there. It's about 13.3 trillion shillings. We are just trying to say, let's create a bond of 30% of our GDP that forever can transform our country. That from Mandera to Vanga to Busia, we have perennial agriculture throughout the year. We become a net meat exporter. We become a net grain exporter. And we have jobs. Actually, what we're showing here in the statistics is for every 1% of land mass added to agriculture, GDP will be going on at least with 1%. Every 1% of land mass of Kenya brought into agriculture will bring GDP up by 1. We don't need to borrow money for other roads will be constructed by this bond. And one of the benchmarks we have used is the Great Renaissance Dam of Ethiopia. We realized with that we have created about 700 square miles of a lake. We are saying if we only do about 10 Naivasha lakes, we'll be able to harvest enough water for that country to feed everybody in Mandela, everybody in Masabit, Saburu, Turkana, Laikipia, Nakuru, everywhere in Kenya will have water. And we can pipe water to every Kenyan. So the slides are not showing, but I'll leave it there. If they are able to slide the slide when we are eating lunch, that's fine. But please join us. Go to foodsecurityconsortium.com. Right now, if you look at it, we're not publishing openly, but you can talk to me, I can show you. I can give you a code to look at the website. That is a website with a broad page. We are asking all diaspora people to come in. Let's give ideas. Let's contribute your ability, like Kilondu there, ability to do fundraising, ability to create the registration with our members of parliament. Let's all come together. It's like a big table. It's a long table of problem, but it's a table of solution. Let's come together and solve this problem. Solution. Yeah.
Okay. Please, for those ones who are talking, just there are people watching and listening. A lot of noise distracts. If you could please lower that down a little bit. Very please, for the sake of those ones who are watching and listening to this live, just eat, but slowly. Okay. Okay. I want to welcome your Justice Kimei.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to make a very brief remarks. We appreciate, as a delegation from Kenya, the invitation that you've given us. We believe that there is sufficient knowledge here, that there is sufficient willingness here, that there is sufficient investment here that can be able to transform our country. You can see we've been very patient here so that we can demonstrate to you that we are not just politicians in our country. We are change agents for our country. You can see the Honorable Martha, the head of delegation, is still seated somewhere. I can see her with Honorable Nomusi. You can see Justice Matsaya from the Senate, together with the other senators there. You can see Julius Sunkuli, together with the other members of parliament there. We are keen to work with you people so that we can be able to transform our country. How do we look at you? We look at you as our big brothers and as our big sisters. We look at you as people who can hold our left hands and leave the right hand to work and to defend our country. We look upon you people so that when we go back home, we can see we have a community out there that can transform our country. Finally, on my part, I remember when I was young, visitors used to come home and my mother would send me, my late mother would send me to go and bring a banana, to go and bring a pineapple, to go and bring something that we could give to our visitors whenever they visited us. That was a form of generosity. We've come here, we've given you the investment opportunities that are available out there in Kenya. When we go back home, we would like to get that cabbage from you, that pineapple from you, that orange from you, so that we can take it back home. People will be able to know we visited you and their brothers and sisters who want to come back and help us in our country. Finally, we may have one or two issues back home. They are not the important issues. The important issue back home is to transform the economy and to change agriculture so that it can continue taking us forward. And finally, we want you to realize that food in our country, food security is not maize growing alone. We want to move to other crops so that we can assure our nation of food security. Thank you very much for listening to us. It has been a tremendous pleasure and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Dr. Chochi for concluding remarks.
Thank you again for listening and engaging with us. My concluding remarks are this: agriculture, local sustainable agriculture is what we need for today, tomorrow, and the future. And we need to support the farmer, the most important person, to be able to produce in a profitable way. We need to protect that farmer. Second point, the Kenyan system, lawmakers, you are here, can we find a way of making agriculture cool again? My husband went through Egerton University, and I was able to experience the institution at its peak, known for agriculture. I don't know if anybody went through Egerton, but the yogurt that was made in Egerton, the milk that was produced, it was a self-sustainable canvas. I was talking to Dr. Chacha today. He told me the Department of Agriculture has the least enrollment, which means agriculture is not cool again as an option for students to major in, because that's what we need. My passion has been making agriculture cool again, starting with school gardens. Here with AfriThrive, we are working with public schools, especially elementary schools, starting school gardens. The movement is towards eating healthy, and eating healthy is knowing where exactly the food is coming from. So we get the children excited about farming from the early age. That's what we need back home. We need schools, public schools, to start their own gardens. They rear their own chicken. They have their own cows, so that the students can help in the chores and at the same time appreciate the production process. They need to know that the food is not coming from the supermarket. If anything, COVID taught us a lesson that sustainable agriculture is local agriculture. All planes stopped, all the cargo stopped. We couldn't get food imported, but we had local food, and that's what we want, local food that is profitable and sustainable. And I know we can do it together. Those who are in Kenya, those of us in diaspora, I'm calling my diaspora colleagues, let's invest it back home in agriculture. Let's make it profitable. Let's make it a wealth generation sector and move it from the traditional food production. It's supposed to be wealth generation. Let's employ young people, because unemployment is really an issue. Diaspora, please make sure you have 5 employees, getting them from college and they work in your farm, or start one. That's, I think, how we can get jump starting the economy in Kenya. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Choti. And I'm going to have, out of respect of time, I'm going to have Dr. Shiuli make his concluded remarks as well.
Thank you. I think many points have been raised here, but I want to say that as diaspora, we are proposing things that are going to tackle this issue very, very well. And I'm glad that we have our honorable members of parliament here, because what we want to do is to partner with the government, diaspora, in a direct way through this food security consortium bond. So when that bill comes to you, members of parliament, that is going to be our diaspora game changer. Diaspora is, and they have the funds. In fact, what we send as remittances, you all know, is perhaps even less percent of what, 5% of whatever that they have. So they have the other 95% that is here. So we are just going to tap into another 5% of what the diaspora have. And that is what my friend Peter Maina was suggesting here. That $30 billion bond. So we are saying, the government, please help us to create this diaspora food security consortium bond, because that is where the diaspora is going to put their money, so that that money now can be able to be invested in areas where the diaspora wants to put issues of agricultural projects, whether it is canals, because we have already done hydrological mapping of actually where the water is, because we want to move away from rain-fed agriculture, as Honorable Kimei said, to bring that water closer to the farmer, so that they can have actually 2 crop seasons in a year, instead of just having one. And that means more food security, because if you know between month of January to June you have a harvest, and between July to December you have a harvest, you are more stable. And then we have ways in which we can reduce even the post-harvest food waste, because we'll have processing areas nearby where they can process and package the food.
When you look at this country and what Maina was suggesting about USDA, it is because now they created areas where farmers can be able to have storage facilities for products and processing quickly so that the products that are coming from the farm are quickly processed and packaged and kept in warehouses for maybe 2 or 3 years because they have that kind of a shelf life. So what we're saying is to transform all these needs people and game changer, but we are asking the government through our members of parliament, when that bill comes about food security, please pass it. Because if you pass it, you are giving us a nod as diaspora to now partner with our people back home to expand that. Because we want to create jobs. We don't want just food product to come from Kenya and just be exported without creating any value addition at home. We want, whether it is that mango, to have a mango juice processing facility, or if it is that peas, to have a peas powder processing facility. If it is vegetable, a vegetable processing facility. We don't want to export things that are in raw form, because if you export in raw form, they are not creating local jobs. So we want to change that narrative again, and that's why we are saying this food security consortium bond is very, very crucial. And it is coming because a few of us sat together and we've been doing that, and that's why we have even that website that Mine has talked about, and we want to make sure that we can be able to attract all the diaspora talent and diaspora resources to ensure that we all work together to solve this problem. Thank you very much.
On this, the other thing I forgot to mention about is capacity building. The diaspora bond-funded project are going to have a component of between 25 to 35% of every project going to institutions of higher learning to execute that project. Whether it's the road building, universities should be able to participate. Faculties should be able to apply for the fund there and train their engineering students to build those roads, to build those water systems. So by the end of every project, you are graduating very knowledgeable people. Universities don't have to be going broke, or every project will be having a lot of money for universities. So capacity building and then technology. Many people are talking about corruption. We've already proposed a way that we are going to track every dollar through blockchain. Every dollar on that project will be tracked from project consumption, tendering to execution.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we should appreciate that. I think this, we do have Professor Nyongo standing by, but first I want to begin with the panelists here, just to thank them. Peter Maina, thank you very much. You've been very instrumental, of course, in the discussion here, a part of the partners. Your great work is appreciated. We want you to appreciate it. In addition to whatever he does, he's a philanthropist, and more importantly, I came to learn last night, he's a man of God. We appreciate that. We also want to thank Justice Honorable Kimei. I think all of us will agree his contribution here says a lot about the kind of parliamentary debates we need in Kenya. Very eloquent, very intelligent, very objective in analysis. We appreciate you, and of course, by extension, we appreciate the members of Parliament from Kenya who are here. One thing that I've noticed, that they've been sitting here, and I'm going to speak to the viewers online. The members of Parliament have been sitting here, they've been taking notes. I think that we do sincerely appreciate that, and I think this is the kind of conversation and engagement that we need going forward. And then to my left, this is my sister, Dr. Choti. I'm so proud of my sister here, because I am very happy she's from my village. And Dr. Choti, the husband, the man who made us go to school, is also with us. We appreciate you. But also I can't thank enough, and I'm sure I do on behalf of everybody sitting in the hall and everybody watching from around the globe, President Dr. Robert Churi. This man works very hard. Every time I call him, he picks the phone. He's on landing at a particular airport around the globe. I'm sure we may not pay you today, but I think everybody will join us, and particularly the pastor being here, that God has a special way of paying people back. You will be rewarded, and we appreciate you, Dr. Churi. And to all of you sitting here, thank you so much for being very patient with us. I know Wakil Opande asked a question, but here's what I'm going to ask. Because the panelists have been very tired, and Professor Nyongo is standing by, and he's scheduled to make a speech later tonight, and he needs to do some more stuff. I'll have him just make his concluding remarks, then he can go to bed as we also wait for the next panelist to get ready here. So Professor Nyongo, will ask you to be very brief, please, so that we can move on to the next section. But for now, Opande, was that a very pressing?
It's a question I have, but it's
Okay, so looks, I didn't want to give you a mic, but Maina said I should. Okay, Professor Nyongo, please summarize if you could.
Well, I want to thank you, but I'd like to ask my friend Justice Kimei. Thank you so much for being in the panel. Could you please come back with that food bond, the idea, and the conception, and how it's going to work? Because quite honestly, the Council of Governors would really appreciate to discuss this food bond with the diaspora. As you know, agriculture is both a national and county function, and we would be very interested, because I think this is one source of capital in agriculture that is sustainable really in the long term, and that can be very effective in mobilizing resources for agriculture. So please, I'm thanking you for coming up with the idea and welcoming it. We can have a concrete discussion between yourselves and the Council of Governors on this issue. Thank you.
Opande, everybody seems to like you, but I like your tie, if you could ask it. This is Laban Opande, one of our leading lawyers from Texas. We've been telling him to get to the Supreme Court of the United States. Why is he Texas? I still don't understand, but he needs to respond to that as well. Wakil Opande.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Well, you know, Texas is always big, and as you saw yesterday, we have a very good representation here. I think the question for me is all the panelists, of course the experts as well as our elected leaders, there's this thing about GMO, which the debate is lost, the messaging is lost, yet we have people dying. We're talking about food security, food crisis. We have people, our brothers and sisters, dying in regions in the north where it's arid and semi-arid. And then we get wrong messaging as to what exactly is good or bad about GMO. What kind of legislation that needs to be put in place to, if there is any negative effects that will impact people's health, that can be put in place for those who are introducing GMO foodstuffs. This country, I believe, I don't have the data, but I believe we live on GMO. 300+ million people, there is no way you can be able to grow a chicken in 6 months. It has to be grown in 2 weeks. I'm very sure what we've been eating here today and since yesterday is all GMO. Now, we have lifespan in Kenya, I think it's about 60 or 62. So you're going to die anyway in around 60 years. You know, so if you're over 60, you must be very grateful because you've passed the life expectancy. But would you rather die of natural causes, or do you want to die of hunger? So what are we fighting? Who is misinforming who about this debate about the GMO? We have experts, we have legislators. If you guys can respond so that people are able to get the right information about GMO so that we don't see pictures of our brothers and sisters dying in the media because of hunger. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. Have you allowed me? I think I want to attempt to answer that question in 2 ways. Number one, the majority of Kenyans are not opposed to biotechnology, genetic engineering, or any other form of modification, any other form of science that will lead to enhanced food production. Secondly, I want to inform you that the genetic modification and biotechnology and GMO was not sold to the people of our country the right way. So many interested parties came on board and misinformed the people. As a committee of agriculture, we have had about 2 major sessions on genetic engineering and the related technology in the last 3 months. And as we speak, we are basically going through the processes of appreciating that science and making Parliament understand the value of that science and making our people appreciate that science. That is what we're going through at the moment. I want to assure you that the more we debate logically and from an informed viewpoint, the greater majority of our people will accept that technology as necessary in enhancing food production. Thank you.
Sir. What I would beg Kenyans to do, especially our politicians, is please try to separate science from politics sometimes. We've seen the dangers of mixing science and politics during COVID. Maybe you or I might know somebody who did not like the way the vaccine was prepared, and they would not take the vaccine, and I know people who died, they would not take the vaccine. I do not see, as a wildlife ecologist, I do not see what is wrong in modifying a banana with a gene from a cactus growing in northern dry area Kenya, so that that banana does not have to lose moisture because of high sun. And all you're doing is you're adding a gene in cactus to a banana so the banana can grow with less water. There is no reason why we should be fighting over science. Science is proven, and our good Dr. Washiri here, he's a man of standard. I think I see Dr. Marasa there. Other people whom I know are in food regulation and standards. They can tell you there is nothing wrong with most GMO-produced corn, grain, soybeans, and whatever. They are only modified either to use less water or maybe to resist pesticides, so you don't have to be spraying chemicals on them. So let's separate science from politics, and then we'll be okay.
Yeah, just to quickly add on that issue, what is important in this debate is understanding whether food safety measures have been taken. Because you can even have organic products that have been affected in other ways, and therefore they're going to affect people. So the important thing is understanding, are there any food safety measures that have been done to ensure that that product arrives to the consumer in the right way? So we need to separate organic, GMO, and food safety. They are two completely different arenas, and therefore, just like Mina has said, let's follow the science, and we will continue following science, because science has information that is showing that there isn't much that can be affected through use of GMO. But then again, there is some politics involved between those who are, the suppliers end of things and the market end of the things. So this is only kind of politics that are there in the business. But again, nothing that would really affect the consumer.
Okay, and then we'll hear Dr. Chot will conclude.
Daktari, it is health safety that we must look at, and in addition, we look at the safety of our environment. Once we're satisfied with science behind the safety of those two particular areas, then GM technology debate on GM technology will tilt towards its acceptance. Thank you.
Correct. Good. Conversation is ongoing, and let's hear from Dr. Chot as well.
Thank you. I want to echo my colleagues. And for one, I want to add that we need more education and awareness on the GMO side, because most people are not aware. And we have good GMO and bad GMO. That is there. depending on how it's been applied. For example, I want to give the way we are genetically modifying the DNA of the avocado, taking the original avocado, grafting it with the other halves and producing halves in mass. That we are modifying that genetics, but that avocado is very safe to eat because we are just attaching and getting improved. The same is the way we did with the manago, producing a species that is less prone to attacks with the diseases. So the same with producing now, we have improved tea that has come now. Seedlings have come for tea. So those are like we are trying to make improvements in a way that is safe. But then there are other ways of producing genetically modified crops that could be harmful to human consumption. And I think that's where safety standards come in, looking at the farms that are doing the production, because even here in the US there are GMOs and there are non-GMOs, and actually when you go to the store you see the food labeled non-GMO. So you make a decision based that the safety standards have certified this as non-GMO and this one the same. So we need education and we need the regulations that protect the consumers in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. The debate is so nice, so we have to bring it to an end. I just like Dr. Maras, I saw him, recognize we have somebody even working with the FDA. So Kenya is very well represented here. We have very smart minds in pretty much every sector of the economy, and I think that says a lot about who we are, and I appreciate the members of parliament really listening. So with that said, but that's okay, I thought you wanted to come on there. I think that will mark the end of it from us. I think you need a, do we need to take a photo as you've done? And then the next panel, please, you could. Oh, I didn't have, please give my panelists a big round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Who is taking the photos? And then the next panel, please get ready so that we can move on to the next session.
What's the photo?
Oh, Ben. Who's? I think she just walked out. Where was the members of parliament join us? Good job, guys. Members of parliament present. You want to take a picture? Yes. Honorable members of parliament present. Head of delegation, please.
Thank you, sir. All right, stop all first, and then my turn. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm good. I'm on it. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good job, good job. So we have another presentation coming up, the FinTech and Small Business, please. You just can like exercise a little bit. Yes, yeah. Oh, actually, I don't go see if there is some. That's very good.
Yeah, but we had like a small light thing. I don't know if it's the last because we have it dinner, so you're gonna be late. You're gonna be late. You're gonna be late because late a lot of coming. This is fintech and small business. Oh, is that the one you are in? I thought you said you wasn't. Oh, this, yeah. So forget about the other one. Now you know. So take a little break.
So, both combined?
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, we will have yours. Okay.
Give me room for today.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness. What a day it's been.